In September of 2023, I completed my thru hike of the Appalachian Trail. After finishing the trail in Maine, my mom came and picked me up in her adventure van, Bob, and we are driving from Maine to North Carolina in the camper van. So come along with us as we wander through our next state of our adventure, New Hampshire. Our first stop in New Hampshire is the adorable town of Conway, where we enjoyed the adorable bookstore of white birch books, and then we wandered around the town to all the little shops. And as good wanderers do, on the way to our next stop, we found this adorable gift shop that was in a covered bridge. This is so cool! I don't know if shops in a covered bridge are a thing in New England, but this was too cute. It was time to continue our wandering of New Hampshire, and we were headed to the mountains, but more specifically, the White Mountains. If you watched my Appalachian Trail videos, then you know that the White Mountains and I have a little bit of history, but it was still really cool to drive through them. It's fun to pass these and not have to climb them again. I almost didn't recognize the trail or this area, but I realized it wasn't decked out in fall colors the last time I was here. Seeing as I wasn't climbing them this time and I wasn't dealing with them in torrential weather, I had a new appreciation for the White Mountains as I got to just drive through them and soak in their magnificence. Plus, it was really cool to see the things that I didn't get to see along the trail, like the little ranger stations and views that we didn't get to see, or views from a different angle because I was on top of some of these mountains instead of going through them. And most importantly, it was so special to get to share these views and this beauty with my mom. She knew that I had struggled through the section of the Whites on the trail, and so it was really special to get to enjoy it in a different way with her. And after enjoying a short trip down memory lane for me, and for my mom a new introduction to the White Mountains, we began to head onto the next stage of our journey, Littleton, New Hampshire. I might not be hiker trash anymore, but now that I'm Vanlife trash with my mom, we still got a resupply. Though, I do have a few more options. This is the best little grocery. The best. I realize it's weird to love a grocery, but after being on the trail, you start to appreciate a good grocery, and this one reminds me of what Whole Foods used to be. Littleton was one of my favorite towns of our whole trip, and one of the reasons that made it so wonderful was this little spot right here called Crumb Bum. Now, if you followed along on my AT adventures, you know that my trail name was Treats, and it is because I love a good treat. So what was the more perfect spot than a place called Crumb Bum? Because I could definitely be considered a crumb bum, and their little pastries and their specialty pumpkin chai was absolutely to die for. Everything we ate there was delicious. But besides the Crumb Bum Bakery, the town itself was the cutest thing ever. They had adorable little gift shops like this Baba Yaga gift shop. They had a bookstore, they had a candy store, they had thrift stores, and adorable restaurants. Littleton was your quintessential New England small town, except better. The trail had reintroduced me to my love of books, and so I was so excited to find these in the little thrift store here in Littleton. And I don't know about you, but when I am in a small town and they have a candy store, I am not necessarily usually a big candy person. My treats are usually baked treats. However, I am a sucker for a cute small town candy store. Where I am from in North Carolina, we have the Mass General Store, and they have candy barrels, and Chudder's reminded me of that, but it was all focused on candy, and it was so much cooler. We filled a bag of candy for the van, and then we went to go get some real food from Mill Street Kitchen, where we had this beautiful view of the river and the little bridge that goes across the river. Although I don't show him right at this moment, baby Zeus was under the table, and he was jealous that he didn't get any snacks. So then we ventured to the adorable little dog store called Tail Swag, where they had a treat bar, and I was able to pick out some special treats for my little buddy to enjoy. Before we headed out of town, I had to make one more stop at Crumbum.
Treats of morning treats.
Y'all, if you are ever in Littleton, do yourself and your taste buds a favor and go to Crumbum. It is so worth it. I still dream about that adorable little bakery. We had gone to Littleton because my mom had a Vanlife meetup with her friends, but after we went to visit there, we headed back to the White Mountains of New Hampshire and went to enjoy Franconia Notch State Park. When through hiking the Appalachian Trail, I was able to go over the Franconia Notch ridgeline. However, there were still so much parts of that park that I didn't get to see, so it was really cool to be able to go hike up Artist Bluff and see the iconic view that everyone raves about. Then it was time to enjoy the views a different way. Instead of on my feet, it was time to enjoy them from the car as we drove the Kangamangas Highway. I hope I pronounced that correctly. But the fall colors were just starting to come through, and we decided to enjoy them by driving through them. Although I had loved the slowness of traveling on my feet, I also really loved being able to travel in the car and get to places just a little bit faster. I also find it really fascinating that using the different forms of transportation, whether it's your car or your feet, or even by plane or train or boat, the different ways that you get to experience and enjoy the environment that you're in depending on the form of travel that you're taking. New Hampshire was one of the toughest states for me along the Appalachian Trail. It was beautiful, don't get me wrong, but I really struggled with the state, and so therefore my love of the state was a little bit iffy. But being able to drive through it and not be terrified I was going to fall off mountains made me have a whole new appreciation for the state of New Hampshire. Eventually, our adventure in the White Mountains had to come to an end, and we were headed to Lake Winnipesaukee, where we were going to drive around the entirety of the lake and enjoy all the little small towns surrounding it. And our first stop was Meredith, New Hampshire, where we stopped at the adorable coffee shop called Identity Coffee Co., and it was super cute, and we got to enjoy sitting outside with baby Zeus. Next on our tour of Lake Winnipesaukee was Weir's Beach, and it was kind of different than I thought it would be. I always expect boardwalks to be super cute, but it was kind of hokey. But I did love this sign and how old-fashioned it was, and it was still really cool to experience this spot. Last but not least on our little tour around the lake was Wolfeboro, New Hampshire, and this was my favorite spot around Lake Winnipesaukee. It had so many cute shops and restaurants and little treat spots, and it even had a bookstore, which we know that I was loving. One of my favorite spots in the entire town of Wolfeboro was the adorable little treat shop called the Yum Yum Shop. Oh my gosh, how cute is this? They were known for their gingerbread cookies, and so I had to get a frosted gingerbread man to enjoy, and it was absolutely delicious. We really enjoyed Wolfeboro, and we hope to come back and explore more of it one day. The next morning, we were on our way to our next destination of Portsmouth, New Hampshire, but you know that, of course, along the way, we had to stop at the cutest little coffee shop called Wayfarer in Laconia, New Hampshire. Our first stop when we got to Portsmouth was this adorable stationery store called Gus and Ruby Letterpress. I absolutely loved it. And after we did some shopping, we did some wandering, and we came across some of the cutest little walkways and alleyways that led us to some hidden gems and this adorable spot where I, of course, had a little mid-morning treat of an almond croissant. And then we wandered some more before it was time for lunch, and we enjoyed it next to the water. Besides the fact that Portsmouth was just a cool little town, my mom also used to live here, and so for her, it was like a trip down memory lane to get to wander and show me all of her favorite spots around town. I loved getting to see and explore this place that she lived and loved through her eyes with her before I was even a thought in her head. Sharing this entire trip with her and this experience was so, so special, and I was so glad that I had the opportunity to do so. And one of my mom's favorite spots in Portsmouth was heading to the beach, and since we were so close to the ocean, we couldn't help but go. We finished out our lovely day in Portsmouth with a meal by the water and enjoying the sunset. It was absolutely lovely and the perfect way to end a great day in Portsmouth, New Hampshire. The next morning, we were once again on the move, and we had to stop at a cute spot that we saw along the road called Ginger Fox Artisan Bakery. It was adorable and the perfect little stop before we made it to one of our last towns in New Hampshire.
The little town of Peterborough, New Hampshire.
The town of Peterborough, New Hampshire was tiny, but what it lacked in size, it made up for in adorableness. It not only had some beautiful little tiny outdoor spaces to enjoy and walkways, but it also had some adorable shops like a bookshop, which again, we know that I was obsessed with after the trail. I was just so into reading. But my other favorite spot was that it had this adorable arts and crafts store where I got a new gorgeous shimmery watercolor sketchbook that I was super excited about.
I love it when I find a good sketchbook.
We were slowly making our way out of New Hampshire, so we didn't spend too long in Peterborough, and as we were continuing our wandering, we found this spot in Marlborough, New Hampshire, that was a glass studio, and to be more specific, a blown glass studio, and they made these beautiful pieces, and we got to actually see their process and talk to the artist, and my mom even picked up a little handmade, hand-blown glass pumpkin. It was adorable. And then we were on our way once again, and we were in the town of Keene, New Hampshire, where we enjoyed the little cafe called Bakers, and they also had this really cool shop called the Shadow Emporium, where my mom and I got what I can only describe as like some witchy type goodies. We had so much fun in this store. New Hampshire was full of so many adorable little small towns and little hidden gems, and I'm really grateful that I got the opportunity to explore it in a different way than on the trail, because I was able to appreciate it a lot more when I wasn't spending so much time struggling up mountains. And seeing as my mom lived in New Hampshire for a little while, it was so cool to see this place through her eyes. But we couldn't stay forever, and our time was coming to an end. It was time to make our way to the lovely state of Vermont.